Duncan, how do you think coach impacts the culture of the church itself?
Churches at that point had made the transition from outsourcing evangelism and community work to maybe NGOs to realizing, well, we need to be a part of this. And then I think coach was instrumental in helping people realize, well, this is more than a once a week program. In order to do that, we need to immerse ourselves in people's lives. And in order for that to happen in a sustainable way, we need people who can walk with them and support them. And that's a significant journey. But Mark, it transformed the way we saw evangelism. We saw more people come to Christ in that season when a coach, even though proselytization was never at the heart of this, when inevitably a coach had been walking with a mentoree and invited them to a prayer group, and in the process of praying, people opened up their lives to God, and we saw transformation. We saw those people feeding into faith communities like Jigsaw. And so we realized programs are important, but this is really equipping people to do life in a very deep and authentic way with some people, the sort of people they would never have crossed paths with before. But it was always Jesus' intention that they did. But then the other thing that really struck me was there was this amazing young social worker called Mark Matthews, and he was looking like a burnout case to me, because he was coaching the coaches on the Peninsula frantically, but on the other hand, he's getting calls from Baptist churches in Queensland and churches in New South Wales. And I think one thing we used to ponder, Mark, was that you really need to count the cost before you take on a program like Coach. And so we realized if this was going to go national, we needed to get some basic processes in place. We needed proper licensing procedures. We needed proper training. You needed to be able to go up and sit with a church and say, hey, listen, this is not running a sausage sizzle down the park on a Wednesday afternoon. As good as that is, this is going deep into someone's life, a very broken person, the sort of life you may not have encountered before. And as a church, you need to count the cost before you go on that journey. So I guess, mate, our focus, and you were such a pivotal part of that, was, as was Lydia and a whole bunch of others and Toby up at Crossway, it was, okay, how can we build our capacity to roll this thing out responsibly, mate? And that's how I'd characterize my season. There was really a capacity building sort of season.
Graham, what was it that you saw within Coach that you thought was inspiring for both your local church, but also thinking about the church nationally?
Then when Duncan, then about a year or so after I arrived on what I refer to as the Better Peninsula, the Bellarine, then came down to New Penn. We started talking, and there was a sort of a vision to roll that out into churches and beyond that. And One Hope, Barrel Hills End, called and wanted a senior leader to point the church missionally into the community, maybe not really knowing what that meant. The Coach program, the more I understood it, was just this incredible vehicle. There was nothing like it at the time, I don't think, for, again, taking people who really cared, the whole engagement in community development, particularly with people who are vulnerable and need, increasingly professionalized. And so it was creating this distance between the church, who had the capacity and the heart to care, but maybe not the training, and Coach in this unique way to bridge that. And so there was a discussion. I bet you, Mark, one of the, moving aside the Collingwood supporter part, one of the great joys of my life, the passion that you had for that. And so we started a journey about, well, what would this look like? And it's, without doubt, one of the greatest ministry kind of privileges, and certainly for it to be involved in that rollout beyond New Penn, because by that stage, it had been really quite successful in running for many years.
So, mate, just thinking about being Jesus with skin on, how do you think that Coach has impacted the culture of your church?
So for us, we're a middle-class eastern suburbs church. And in amongst that, there is a heart of, amongst a number of people, to go, we're incredibly privileged, we're blessed. How can we take what we've been given and share it with others?
Yep.
Alongside, it's not right that people have such poor outcomes in life simply because they lost the birth lottery. That sounds a little harsh, but it's not that we play you made the bad choices to put yourself there. I think it's a genuine recognition of, how did you expect people to make good choices given the start they had in life,
Yep.
the generational trauma, if you want to use that term.
Yep.
So there's a desire there's a heart's cry to get involved. There's a heart's cry to express God's love into the community. How do you go about doing that? That's the underlying piece that is running in Stairway. Coach provided us with the tools to be able to do that without making things worse. I've seen too often people with good intentions literally pouring fuel on the fire. And it's like, seriously, just walk away. Do not get involved.
Yep.
But Coach gave us a safe way to actually do something in a very positive way.
Mm.
It allowed us to be true to who we were. We want to turn up and go, we're coming out of this place. I love the fact of the acronym. It's about casting hope. If we can't cast hope, who the heck can? And it does it in a manner that is real, is genuine. It's in amongst it. So that's why it's such a good fit.
Yeah. Now, how do you think that Coach connects with the message of Jesus Christ? What's that connection between Jesus' message and what mentoring does? Yeah.
Let's start with it casts hope. In our pilot program, we had one of the mentors was a lady called Marie. She was working with a single mum who, for the sake of today, we're going to call the single mum Anne. Anne had 3 or 4 boys. The eldest was in prison. The next one was well known to the police. And the third in primary school was struggling to retain a place at school because of his behavioral choices. And in their first meeting, Marie just sat and listened to Anne telling her story, telling her what was going on. And she came out of that meeting and said to me, "What have you got me into?" And I went, "I'm just a dumb engineer. I don't know." And she went, "Okay." And so Marie goes away. Marie takes, I think it was a week later that they were going to meet. And Marie prays. And there's nothing practical, there's nothing physical that Marie can do. It's not like we had access to resources to throw into the situation. Anyway, Marie meets with Anne the next week, probably doing what the heck have I got into? All right, here we go. Let's see what happens. And Anne just bowls in, and Anne's bright, and Anne chins up, a bit of a spark in the eye. And Marie's going, "Oh, hello, what's happened?" And Anne goes, "At one level, life's just the same as it was when we last met. He's still in prison. He's still known to the police, still trying to get the youngest to change behavior so he can stay at this school, not have to move him again. Mm. But I got hope now." And Marie goes, "What? What?" And Anne goes, "You're still here.
Yeah.
You've turned up and you're not walking away."
Yep.
So I've now got hope that something can change, hope that something can be done. And all that had happened, let's first of all acknowledge Marie spent a bit of time in prayer. But all that happened was Marie turned up once and then kept the second appointment and said that she'd be there for the third. And that created a hopeful situation for Anne.
So I'm an associate professor at Monash University. I'm also the deputy head of the Health and Social Care Unit. And the work that we do is to work very closely with health services, but also social care organisations, which include church or faith-based organisations, in developing up models of care, implementing those, evaluating those, and seeing the impact that might have on the well-being of communities.
And of course, in that journey, that process included filtering the submission to do that evaluation through the ethics committee at Monash, which was another really important step for us.
Yeah.
In terms of credibility sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously got ethics approval. We had a number of forms of data collection that we were doing because we wanted to be responsive to the people we were talking to. So there were surveys, there were interviews, there were focus groups. We were looking at client notes that were collected as well. And ethics was like, yep, that's all good. That's all fine. And that also helps us to then publish the findings, because you can't publish in academic journals unless you have ethics approval to say that, yes, this has been done in a rigorous way and in a way that is safe for our community members.
What were the important findings for you that popped up out of that evaluation?
So some of the things that I think very much came from the evaluation, which are still true today, and I really think about where are we as a society today, as we are emerging from COVID, as we are grappling with the cost of living crisis, and we have a lot of people in our society who are experiencing hardship, and sometimes hardship for a first time. And a concept that came through very much in the evaluation and the stories of people who were accessing Coach, but is something that we're talking about as academics and social scientists and government and service providers, is the missing middle. Who provides for the missing middle? The people who may be needing more than just early intervention, but they're not so severe that they need acute care. Who is the sector that can fill that gap? And we heard consistently in the evaluation, here we have a relational service program that I can call when things are closed between 9 and 5. I'm having a little bit of a crisis. I can call my mentor. I can call my coach, debrief, ask for advice and ask for help. We are people, you guys are people who are available on weekends, but are also trying to, I guess, support a segment of society that don't necessarily fall into that formal care service that governmental health services might be funding. And I think that's incredibly important because that missing middle is a segment of Australia that is growing, and we really need to work out how do we mobilise our society to be able to support them and care for them. And I think Coach is very well placed to do that.
Very impressionable and important time of life. I mean, all through childhood, but definitely in those teenage years, you go from being a boy to a young man. And everyone has important people in their lives that make them who they are. And I think some are fortunate enough to have a lot of people, or some really quality people. Some people might not have as many, but, everyone's on their different journeys. But I think with Youth Coach, we saw an opportunity to, be a friend, be an older role model to some young people in the community, and maybe especially some who could really benefit from that for whatever reason that could be. I think especially in this day and age where people aren't as connected, and maybe not both in their families and the communities speaking in a broader sense, it's probably even more important now than ever, I imagine. Less people have role models or people mentoring them or supporting them. And I know I was fortunate enough to have that in my life to different degrees. So it's always a chance to give back and share life with someone younger, and hopefully be a support and have a positive connection.
I always thought Will was like, he would encourage you to be yourself and would always give you like good advice and stuff when you needed it. Just always demonstrate, just be yourself, and like encourage you to pursue your hobbies and stuff. Like I remember I was starting to learn guitar, and he got real keen as well. I remember there was a time he tried to help me tune my guitar, and he broke one of my strings.
If I think of James's life, you've had a very successful adult life, James. Like, you finished school. My memory is you did very well at school, and in your family it was a huge success. So that's really good. And not long after school, you were successfully living out of home independently with friends, which is a big achievement too. And you've recently finished your diploma of, was it web design?
Yeah, web development.
Yeah, like if I think of your life, they're huge achievements. And I mean, look, I'm one of many people in your life. I remember at school you had a lot of good teachers and supports there, and with the youth group and other family friends, and your family was supportive too. But like, I think life could have looked differently for you or for any of us without some of those supports. Obviously, I'm one of many, and a lot of it's down to credit to you and your strengths as a person and you striving to achieve goals. But if I think of just the mentoring, I suppose me being only one helpful person in your life is, a good, important thing to do. And I look at your life now and you're a successful, seemingly happy young man. So you've done very well, which is hats off to you on that.
I guess, James, if some people are listening to this conversation or something like this is being shared now, What would you encourage people to think about in terms of the value of mentoring in your experience?
I suppose, like, in relation to what I said earlier, like kindness goes a long way because you know how important a person will be in your life until you're like living through it. Continue to be supportive of what's best for everyone. Have each other's backs.
I think it was under Mark Spicer. She was the pastor of the children and young families at Crossway. And I'd been coordinating our ministries in schools. We were doing several different things. And it was decided we'd make a strategic move to focus on the mentoring, which we'd been doing since about 2004. It was. Then with Crossway Life Care involved with Coach. So they were now doing adult coach, developing youth coach. It was Marg's strategy vision there to align us better and develop Coach for children as well. So it was this coming together of a whole group of people, I think, to each contributing their expertise so that we now have this wonderful, coach training manual and a good framework to work within. I think we know that from time to time, families need this additional help with their children. And for some of the kids we're working with, they're not even in their own families any longer. They're in out-of-home care and the like. The need is just increasing. And this was all before COVID, let alone post-COVID, with those kind of children struggling to cope emotionally and socially and the like. So we were seeing those needs in front of us. And we know that a kids coach mentor can come alongside those children to assist, to help build. And even though we know children also need some professional help at times, I think there's a place for kids coach mentoring for that longer extended time. And it works really well. And we see that in what the children, what the principal, what the parents are saying back to us as well.
We got involved. We heard Mark Matthews came to our church with Andrew Taylor, and I was already a coach myself. I became a coach in 2010, and this was about 2015 that they came along and spoke to our church, and the response was incredible because it just made sense that Coach was such an effective way to help people, adults and kids alike, because it's, I won't say an easy way, but it's just a really simple way of walking beside someone, as we know, whether it be a child or an adult. And anyone can do that. If you've got a heart for other people, there's no reason that you can't become a coach. And I think so many people responded at that time during that service or after that service. And that's where it all started at Bayview. It creates the church is involved in the schools and in the community, but also the schools now want the church involved and are asking, can we have more coaches? But some of them are coming in and, what does the church do? What is this Bayview Care? And so they're involved in other programs now and they're linked in. And the wonderful thing is that they see the church too as a beacon of hope, as light. And in their local community, we know where we can go for help, which is what it's all about. It's what we're called to do. And an example of that is through COVID too. We couldn't obviously meet. The kids couldn't meet with their mentors, but there was lots of letter writing going on, which was wonderful. And we actually rang the school and said, okay, we can't meet with the kids. What can we do to help? And they said, what would be terrific? Meals. So we got our coaches together and obviously not literally together, but we got everyone cooking, and once a week we would provide all of the families of the kids who we were coaching and those most at risk and struggling the most, and we were able to provide a bag of groceries and 2 or 3 hot meals a week to the families of the kids, which was a wonderful thing to do.
This principal talked about that because I think schools are looking for that, as Sally's given that example. As she said here, that schools are a hub in any community, and bringing in the broader community, as with Kids Coach, is particularly powerful. It impacts on the children involved, of course, but also on the teachers, the parents, and the school community. And when I think of this program, I'm strongly reminded of that famous saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Can you share us a little bit around that story of how it originated, why and how it came into being in the first place?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sam. So Financial Coach actually started at a little office in Crossway Life Care in 2013. It was a way of complementing the food pantry at the time. We wanted to discover a way to make a hand up rather than a handout. And we really identified that there was some tangible needs in the community around their finances. It was actually called the Be Empowered program back then. So we joined with the Financial Coach, I think in 2018 or 19. And that since then we've looked at letting it go national. And since it's gone national, I think it went national in 2020. We've actually mentored participants in Victoria, South Australia, West Australia and Queensland.
Yeah.
Really got some wonderful, wonderful results. We've got, so some of the stats we've had a 56% improvement in participants' knowledge and decision making. So a lot of the things we measure are specific to what they need, their well-being, but the decision and decision making and knowledge really shows their ability to move on past the program when they're doing it on their own, to show that we've made some long-term impacts into the lives of the participants.
And then what were the encouraging things you saw unfold from that, local level beginning, and how did you see that leading to it being offered as a national resource and a national program?
We thought that although we had tried some budgeting approaches in the past, they were quite informal and not really highly organized. And so Financial Coach seemed like a great opportunity, because it was already so well put together as a well-resourced, opportunity for us to be able to support our clients and our community.
And can you give us an example or two of some of the positive impact you're seeing, some of the ongoing change that you've supported people to achieve?
Yeah, it's been really exciting to see the people that we're supporting just be starting to realize that their strengths as we go along, and to realize that they have the power to change their circumstances and their financial situation. So those who may have more often than not grown up in poverty situations themselves and coming from that, that place of disadvantage, to understand that it can be different and that it is actually achievable. So it's so exciting to see when they identify their goals, and then by breaking them down into smaller steps, they can make those changes that builds their confidence. And you can just really see them light up in that and realize that they actually have the capacity to be able to build this lasting change.
In regard to the impact, we're just seeing generational poverty removed. A lot of what we learn about our finances is from our parents. So we find that generational poverty is an issue. So if we can break that process by impacting one level of that generation, hopefully they will then teach their children and support their children in the tools that they've learned. So that's the ultimate goal of where we want to see.